Tom Ferry, I said all of you know him. He's a great man, a great friend to Integra. He is the CEO, of course, of Ferry International, the real estate industry's leading coaching and training company. You have been named, I think it's this year, the #1 ranked real estate educator by Swampo. Congratulations, it's a great honor. And you're also the best-selling author of Life by Design. I've read it. I love that book, Tom. And I have not read this one, but it's on my list. Mindset, Model, and Marketing. Love that title. So without any further ado, Tom Ferry, take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Fiona, and welcome everybody. So why don't we switch off the screens there so I can just kind of see everybody and have a conversation. Yep. First and foremost, let me just see the numbers really fast here. Looks like we got about 91 people on the line with us so far. And look, what I'm excited is that there's 91 of us that are owners of companies, and we're leading people, we're managing people. So I want to have a conversation with you the same way I'm having it with every one of the CEOs that I work with today. Tens of CEOs that I'm on the phone with or in Zoom sessions now, helping them move their business forward. I think all of us have probably said the phrase unprecedented times, an unprecedented number of times the last 4.5 weeks. I know, going back to January, middle of the month, I was with my COO at the time who was born and raised in Beijing. And we were in a lot of conversation about, basically what was already happening in China. And nobody knew that it was going to hit us the way it has. In a recent conversation with one of my CEOs, he happens to have about 90,000 agents amongst all of the companies that he owns. He said to me, we know how to work through recessions. Like we've figured that part out, right? We've done that. I mean, having been in the industry now for 31 years, probably as many of you, like we know how to navigate those waters. These waters are different. These waters really call us to lead. And that word lead or leadership really is the message of the day. What I'd love to do is share with you just a couple of things that the other leaders and I are talking about, the things that we're holding each other accountable to. And whether that's Brad Inman, who I just texted literally 15 minutes ago, reminding him of an accountability, or Michael Polsler, who many of you know, who we've just been friends for a decade plus. There's just a giant void in leadership today in our space. Even when I talk to the agents, and by the way, I think my last count on social was about 18 million impressions just in the last couple of weeks, and 500,000 views just on 3 shows where we're just talking about the market. We know that today, the vast majority of agents and some owners of companies have kind of mentally or emotionally furloughed themselves, is the only way to describe it. Nobody terminated them. Nobody said to them, hey, we need you to step away. But we all know a broker or two that just is struggling to deal with this market. And in many cases, they've just checked out. And I don't think it's any one of you, because you wouldn't be now 100 participants on this. You wouldn't be in that situation, right, if that was the case. But the thing I keep saying to owners of companies, especially when they have multiple managers or 100 agents, 50 agents, 25,000 agents for Michael in Europe, is that we need every one of them back. We need every one of them back to make sure that we work through this in the most efficient and effective way possible, not only for the safety of our businesses and for our clients and for our agents, but because of the impact that residential real estate has on the GDP of the US. Like, it's paramount that we are resourceful and do whatever it takes. And that's really why I'm here to talk to you guys today, because, what it requires is leadership. So I was looking at just, difficult times in life and business, myself and others, and talking with great leaders in the industry. Walter Schneider and I were texting a ton 2 weeks ago. There's a lot of women and a lot of men that are battle tested. And when you synthesize down, like, as I like to do, the 3 or 4 sort of main things, to keep it simple, because, a list of 10 is just too much and there's never one solution for all of us. So I want to share with you the 4 things that when I'm talking to leaders, there always seems to be one or two that really calls them forward, that really gets them in action, or in many cases simply reminds them of the opportunity to lead right now. You know, I've written in my notes here, there's going to be a massive flight to quality for real estate agents over the next 6 to 18 months. A massive flight to quality. And one could argue that's a massive flight to leadership, right? That clearly we're seeing in every market, and you know it and I know it, companies where owners have just raised their hands and said, forget it. And you know, we can't do anything in this environment. And then literally across the street might be your office, and your agents have gone virtual. Your agents have done what it took. Your agents are doing the things every single day that are giving themselves and their buyers and their sellers the power to move forward if that's what their choice is. So let's talk about it. None of this should be a blinding flash of the obvious. I want you just to take it more as, you know, CEO to CEO, leader to leader, right? Not better, not worse, just a friendly voice to remind us of what we're responsible for. So the first thing I have in my notes is that great leaders, they see things as they are. They see things as they are. And, you know, we all have one agent that we work with, and I have tens of thousands that oftentimes fall into the category. And you know, there's three kinds of human beings right now. There's the people that are just freaking out all the time. And I wish them all blessings. I want them back, right? What we recognize though is there's just people in life that when they get squeezed, right, their response to being squeezed is to react negatively or to freak out or to panic or to have anxiety or to basically give themselves some rationalization as to why they can perform this way and not work. And again, I'm not attacking them in any way, shape, or form. I have tens of thousands of agents that we work with around the world that fall into that category of, as the great Wayne Dyer said, we all get squeezed. The question is, when you get squeezed, what comes out? Is it fear, anxiety, stress, tension, and anger? Or is it joy, possibility, abundance, gratitude, contribution? Right? Think about it, right? You and I know where we lie, right? We're all getting squeezed right now, but I'm finding so many people, like many of us, like right now in this session, is as we get squeezed, we think, how do I help more? Right? What's the innovation I need to do? What's the adjustment I need to do? Boy, I need to get back to my gratitudes. I need to get back to doing the things emotionally and mentally that maybe I stopped doing, the things that helped me get here. I got to go back to them again. And it's really this like division, if you will, the ones that are panicking, the ones that are leading you. And then there's that group in the middle. And it's really the ones that I think about probably the most, because I'm trying to figure out what's the approach to get them back. I was talking with Stefan Swampool, who all of you know, and Steve Murray, who is a business partner of mine in another venture. And we're all kind of convinced that there's probably 800,000 agents that have just emotionally checked out. And the reason why is because they're not seeing things as they are, right? We don't want to make them better, but what we really don't want to do is make them worse. And what we know is there's probably one leader out here, right, who has said something to an agent or said something to a group of agents that in the moment was true and real for them, but they push people's psychology and belief about business down here in the moment. And I'm not calling you out. I'm just encouraging you and reminding you that what great leaders do, it's Max Dupree wrote a book called The Art of Leadership, sitting right there on my shelf. Max Dupree, he said, what great leaders do is they define reality. They define reality. They don't let the reality of what CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the internet, they don't let them, all of that noise define their business, their ability to move forward, their ability to be resourceful, their ability to be gritty. They define their reality. And that's really the message for all of us. What's the reality that you're defining? I was, today's Monday, so Thursday of last week, I was on the phone, Zoom, so funny we say phone still, in a Zoom session with a team, a small independent brokerage in the north end of Boston. And I'd asked, there are 5 sales associates, the 2 team leaders, a couple that own this little, boutique business. I said, so give me some wins just from the last 7 days. And if you heard the win and like there is pockets of the country that they're in multiple offer situations. They put a listing on the market, it sells in 2 seconds. Right? I mean, there are those places everywhere. This one happened to just be in the north end of Boston. my point to you is, you and I as leaders, we got to see things as they are, right? And then we got to do the second one. And this is one of the harder ones. And I don't mean hard like hard for you or I. I mean, it's just one of the pills that we have to swallow as leaders. It's one of the things that we signed up for when we bought a franchise, when we, put the title broker or leader or CEO or executive, right, on our business card. In that moment, we understand, and I know you do it now, is I wrote down, you're expected to be able to, one, create certainty in uncertain times. You're expected to be able to do that, right? It just goes with the territory. I know a lot of you maybe are in the Massachusetts area. I think a lot about my father-in-law who passed away last October, 94 years old, military guy in Revere, right, in Boston. And, when Pearl Harbor happened, he and like 31 of his buddies all signed up for the military that day. My Uncle Frank, who's still alive, 96, had dinner with him in Somerville, right, Massachusetts, just November of last year. Here's these two guys in what we oftentimes refer to as, the greatest, group of men and women ever, right? The greatest generation ever. And I think what made them so extraordinary, in my opinion, I think about my mother-in-law who's 92 and upstairs, and how she was contributing and working at that time, how her soon-to-be husband was in the same exact situation. It was like this call to arms, right? They understood what was expected and they did it. No one gave them a manual, a book, a training program, right? You were literally just thrown in. You know what I'm talking about, which is similar to how a lot of us are feeling right now. Like, there's no training for running a real estate company in a pandemic, right? But there is on leadership, right? You and I both know we're expected by all the agents and all of their customers to have the answers, to be able to create certainty. And here's what I wrote down. Stay in your lane. None of us should be talking about pandemics and when it's going to end, because none of us know that, right? But what we can do is we can talk about data. We can talk about what's going on in the market. We can talk about, like I talked to one of my big CEOs who said, Tom, I'm down 42% on pendings, in the month of April. And I was like, yeah, I understand. And I said, and you're comparing that to last April, which was the single greatest April the company's ever had. And I said, you're down 42, but that also means we got 58% that we did do, right? So let's talk about the 58% that we did do, right? Which is hard for people. But if you want to create certainty, you need to be talking about what is happening, right? The agents that are slaying the dragon, the agents that are doing transactions, the agents that are moving things forward, right? Not the one that got away, not the deal that fell apart, not the crazy seller, crazy buyer, or, unfortunate circumstance of one of our, partners in a transaction. We need to be talking about the good stuff that's happening, not making it better, just not making it worse, just keeping it as it is. But then the other thing that you're expected to be is optimistic. Here's the hard part. I remember when I took over my dad's organization a million years ago, and by the way, Fiona, I could see just your face on there, or like a screenshot. We were actually named 7 years in a row the #1 coaching and training company, which we're very proud of here. But you think about, like, how do you earn something like that? I go back to the days of when I ran my dad's company, first as a sales manager, right? And then, we all know what it's like to be a sales manager of sales associates. Like, I remember, coming in the office and having the recognition that if I got in an argument with my wife, or I was upset about something, and I had that look on my face when I walked inside the office, I negatively impacted everybody in the organization. You know it and I know it, right? Leadership is, we can bring humanity, right? We can be human, right? And we're expected to be positive. We're expected to be optimistic. We are expected to be the ones that are saying, we got this, we can do it, let's move forward. Think about that, which I have a little side note for you here, just being mindful of time. One of the things that, so we've given you guys a bunch of tools, and I hope that you and your agents find these very valuable. One is a thing called the MEDS, MEDES tracker. No, I'm not asking you to take medication. MEDS is simply an acronym for, we believe you should meditate every day, to focus on your breathing, to get centered, because we all know that how you feel on the inside radiates to the people on your outside. Now, for some people, I say do PEDs, pray if that works for you. The E is exercise. That there's no doubt in this environment, we've got to be physically strong, to be mentally strong, to maintain the optimism, and to do the things we have to do to keep the business moving forward. I had a person text me recently, I've never been an exerciser. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a word, exerciser. She said, but I'm doing 2-minute planks because I see your wife on Instagram doing planks, and I just know I've got to be stronger in this environment. And we all know the impact of body to mind, right? Body to mind, feeling strong here, feeling strong here. The D is diet. Obviously, we need to be eating for energy now more than ever, and trying to avoid things that we eat or drink that throw us in extreme highs and lows, because that kills our ability to be optimistic, and it also kills some of our certainty, right? When you drink too much or you eat the wrong things for that quick dopamine rush, you know what happens, right? High, low. And maybe in that moment of low is when you had a session or an opportunity to talk to one of your agents, and just for that moment, you lost what's expected of you. So we can't afford to do that. And the last one is sleep, that we need to get rest, right? Rest now more than ever to relax ourselves. We probably have time to do it for the first time in maybe 10 or 11 years to get caught up, maybe even taking some naps. Yes, I definitely said that to you. Maybe a late afternoon nap's a good idea. But I know this, with all those forms we gave you, the meds, the other one's called the 10-10 tracker. The one you're going to be the most, the one that'll be the most used is the 75 tech tools. We're doing trainings like this every day with, this morning, 1,800 agents from around the world. And we're constantly updating them on, not overwhelming, just one piece of technology. Take a look at this site. Here's how you use it. Here's how it works. Here's what will help you be more proficient, stand out, and be able to touch more clients, because that's the game today. The other one is the business plan. So make sure you guys take a look at that stuff. All right, back on my list. Number one is see it as it is, right? See it as it is. Don't make it better. Don't make it worse. Number two is just acknowledge what is expected of you. It is expected that you're positive. It is expected that you create certainty for the agents. That's what they need you for now more than ever, to know that it can be done and it will be done and that you have their back. And I know for some of you, you're like, but Tom, I'm struggling. Listen, I do this with agents all the time. I say, show me, are you mentally here? Like you're positive, you're optimistic. Are you here? You're positive and optimistic. Some days you're off. Or are you in the tank? And if I see an agent go like this, I'm like, look, you might be a serial killer. Like everybody is having days like this. We as leaders though know we can't show that to our teams. We can't show that right now. We need to show them, not braggadocio, but we got your back and we're going to move forward and we're going to get through this. It's the note I have right here. When this is over, I say it to my clients all the time, all over the world. When this is over, we're going to celebrate. When this is over, you will be the ones that stand out amongst the crowd. You will be the one that made the biggest difference in your community. Creating certainty. Number three, easy one for all of you. Remember, these are just check. Like, yep, I got it. Yep, I got it. Number three is leaders are consistent, which means they've got a daily plan, a weekly plan, and a 30-day plan. And if you're really paying attention to your finances, as I'm sure you are, you're probably looking out at 60 to 90 days out, pendings and closings. And what does that look like for you, right? Today, we've got to be more consistent than we've ever been. Fiona and the team did not ask me to talk about this, but I will tell you that a couple of the CEOs that I work with, one specifically in the great state of Georgia, his 21 managers right now are recruiting their faces off. 3,500 conversations last week. Like, it's unbelievable between text and phone calls and Zoom sessions. There is no doubt, my friends, there is no doubt. Agents are home, agents are looking for certainty, and that's a good example of consistency. See, all the things that we did that got us to this moment before this whole thing derailed in many cases our mindsets or our plans for 2020, all those disciplines we had in place, all those routines, we have to keep those in place. Now, as I say that to you, you might be like, recruiting in this environment, but I hope not. I hope not. Because you know what? Again, like I said to you earlier, it's the flight to quality. We're seeing it with consumers that are literally calling. I see this daily when I ask people for wins, when we do sessions like this and I've got, 1,800 agents on there and I say, share with me a win. And someone will say, got a come list me call. Consumer was dissatisfied with the agent's lack of performance. And the agent said we should withdraw the listing because there's no activity happening, but I saw your sale, your sale, your sale. Will you please list my house? If you're leading today the way I know we can, I would imagine that there are agents that are like right now trying to figure out, who am I going to latch onto? Who's going to lead me out of this environment? No doubt it's a different pitch. No doubt it's a different question. It's a different text. It's a different approach. But we're seeing one of my clients, DJ Della Sella, down in Jacksonville, Florida, small little independent real estate company, 40 agents, was a former bartender, right? Works inside, restaurants, and pings me one day and says, Tom, it's like 2 weeks ago, Tom, I got this idea. I want to hire new agents. He said, in my location where I am, kind of Jacksonville, College Beach, he's kind of on that side. He said to me, there's a lot of people in the service industry. And he said, what if I said, I'm going to shoot a video and I'm going to tell them that if you're in the service industry and you've thought about real estate, I'll pay for your license. And he did it. And the video's gone viral. And the response that he's gotten is unbelievable. Consistency, my friends, right? He's a consistent innovator. He's a consistent person who's always trying to figure out what's the next thing that I can do, as many of us are right now watching this. So I wrote down for you, are you following a schedule, right? Are you on your routines? Are you consistent? Where have you fallen off track? What can you do today to get back to being the disciplined individual that built this world-class business of yours, right? That maybe you've gotten shaken a little bit and a little bit off schedule. Let's get back to it. The last one, number 4, is without a shadow of doubt, in my opinion, the most important. When you think about great leaders, when I think about the men and women that I've been blessed to work for, to work with, to be in leadership partnership roles with, the thing that makes every one of them extraordinary is, in a pressure cooker environment like this, where there's lots of uncertainty for a lot of people, they do the one thing that makes everybody feel good. You know what it is. It's called communication. Communication. If I went on each one of your Instagram or Facebook pages or your LinkedIn page today, when was your last post? Most people I'm talking to that are really leading are doing something 1 to 2 times a day. And whether that's a message of hope, whether that is a simple, happy Passover weekend or Easter weekend, or they're talking about transactions that are being done, stories of hope, that deals are happening, here's how it's working. They're communicating every single day. We know some of the best teams in the world today are doing Zoom huddles at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're meeting back at noon and checking in, and then they're doing end of day celebrations and wins. I just got a message from one of my personal clients, Brandon, who, Remax guy, Phoenix, Arizona. And look, I know every market's a different place, but just take this as an example. Last week, I challenged him and said, hey, let's have a plan where we try with our sales team to go book 30, 40, 50 appointments this week. And he was like, an appointment setting challenge in this environment? I said, could you communicate that in a way that would have your agents understand the reason why we're doing it? We're not talking about trying to get right now listings, right now sales. We're talking about, how do I educate all of the buyers that I was going to work with that I missed in the month of March? And now I can sit down and talk intelligently about the 2 most important questions that every buyer and seller has. How's the market and how do I time this? And we can show them the data that you all have access to from KCM, Keeping Current Matters, and talk about, here's what we know over the last 5 recessions. Here's what the smartest financial institutions are saying today. Here's the MLS, and opening it up inside of Zoom and just showing them everything that this is what's actually happening, right? And then to show them the shadow inventory, the withdrawn listings in the marketplace, and have that intelligent conversation about when this is over, or do you want to move forward? The reality is they went out and booked 33 appointments last week. 33 appointments. And he said to me, it's the most appointments my team has ever booked in a single week. And they're in Phoenix, Arizona, and they're a really good team. Here's my point. Are you communicating enough with your team? Are you educating, inspiring, and moving them forward in one-on-ones, in small groups, as a whole company? And are you doing the same thing and asking them to do the same thing with all of their past clients in Sphere? The only way we win, in my opinion, on the short term is we win the battle of misinformation. The number of people I talk to that without thinking say, prices are falling and the whole world's and you can't even get a mortgage anymore. And I'm like, what planet are you from? Oh, that's right. You're from planet reactionary emotion. When you get squeezed, the only thing that comes out is panic and nonsense. We're in that war, my friends. I challenge all of you. It's not like my Uncle Frank, who for an extra $25 a month said, I'll be a paratrooper and be flown in and land 100 miles over enemy line on D-Day. Here's your rifle, Frank. Go shoot somebody. That's not the situation. We're asking our agents to pick up their iPhone and call their database and educate them. Please, I challenge all of you to do the same. So in wrapping up, Fiona, you know how much you mean to me because we've had a lot of, we've worked on a lot of great projects together. I know, this organization and have known the leadership and the founders of this business forever. It's an honor to be able to hang out with you guys just for a little bit. If I can help, reach out to me, connect with me. I'm here to serve. And all I want to say to you all is this. Hey, when this is over, we're all going to celebrate. Right now, though, here's the internal code. You ready? I know I've got to do 2 to 3 times the work for the same or maybe less income. And I don't care. I'm going to do the work anyway, because that's what leaders do. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tom. So appreciate you.
Got
Take
it.
good care. I know you can't stay on. I know you can't hang out today.
Okay.
No
Take
problem.
care, everybody.
Thanks so much. All right. Well, that was truly inspirational. A great 30-minute uplifting talk with Tom Ferry. Just can't beat that. I know we have lots of people on the call today, and please put your hands up and let's go over any questions that you might have. We will be sharing some of these tools that Tom referenced, the 1010, the 75, and Track Your Meds. So we'll get those documents out to you when we share with you his video, and you'll be able to leverage that if you want as well in meetings. Because all of our agents are, quite frankly, they're all leaders, right? They're leading their customers through this, leading their customers' mindsets through this, perhaps more importantly. All right, so open conversation, town hall style. I hope that you'll participate, share some of the obstacles that you're overcoming, that you're facing in your market, that you need help with, or even perhaps more interestingly, some of the challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them and the success and wins that you've found from doing so. We had some questions that came up, and so we thought we'd bring these up for discussion. Are your agents, are you leveraging the Paycheck Protection Program? And sort of what advice do you have for people who are considering it? What challenges are you facing? Josh Naughton, I don't know if you're able to share with us a little bit on that topic. Is that something that you and your agents are leaning into or intend to lean into? By the way, while we're waiting,
I'm giving them a shot. Here we go.
Virtual backgrounds, you can get them from the COVID resource site on Mac Center or on our COVID resource site on Soul Sign blog. So just so you know, they're kind of handy. All right.
Yep, I'm here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, my friend. Justin Fox is from the Twin Cities. Justin, can you tell us a little bit about, are you leaning into the Paycheck Protection Program? Are your agents leaning in, and what sort of process has that been like for you?
Yeah, I sell too. So I have applied as an independent contractor as well as for our franchise. The original bank that I applied to kind of choked, and so I went to a backup bank, and they were Johnny on the spot. So haven't seen anything aside from I know it's been submitted.
Okay.
So that was kind of exciting. And then I encouraged all of the agents last week. We have a weekly call, also a Zoom, and I encouraged all of them to apply right away, as soon as it was available, because I mean, the way that it sounds right now, why wouldn't you? There's, if you if it's non-taxable after it gets forgiven, I don't see the downside.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. It's certainly a great opportunity for agents. I mean, the other alternative, of course, is unemployment. But for those agents that really want to continue to work but know that their production may be off for the next 3 to 4 months, that is going to be helpful as we get out the other side of this.
Yeah, they were all very positive sounding about it. It seemed to be, it was very well received by the agents. I know several of them contacted me, asking, additional questions and for additional resources. So yeah, that's been good.
Right. Now, the first bank you had choked. So do you have any recommendations for brokers and agents that are looking to enroll or that have tried to? And I'm hearing quite a bit of the banks aren't ready to fund agents. And it seems like it's more about the bank and not about what's being offered by the government.
Yeah, I fortunately I know a lot of bankers. Just in the business, we bank at a big bank for the company, and that company that bank hasn't even opened up the application for us yet. So, I called some of the local bankers that I know. The first bank, it was internal processes for them. The second bank was one that's been trying to earn our business. And so I think he was, so I guess the point would be if you've got a bank that has been courting you, or, you do a lot of mortgage business with that has a regular lending department as well, I think that would be a great place to start, just because they're going to be very eager to earn your business. Because I know the second bank that we went to was just over the top. Like, I emailed him and 30 seconds later, my phone was ringing and he was on it. So I would just say leverage the personal relationships you've got with bankers, even if you don't even think of them that way.
Yeah, it's a really great point. I know Pat Weebush, who's of course in up north from where you are, sort of in the Lake region area. He says we're really fortunate. They've had one of the busiest past months in, sort of a record for them. Going into this. However, of course, he was right on the forefront of this with his agents applying for this paycheck protection. And he actually, I thought it was really interesting, Justin, he actually brought in the loan officer from the local bank and leveraged that and had the loan officer at their office meeting. And I thought, wow, that was really great to sort of have that captive audience, be able to be there and answer all of the questions that the agents had, and they did applications right there. So, I'm hearing a lot about big banks not really having their act together, like Bank of America, particularly. Absolutely not saying anything badly about Bank of America, but I think there's simply their size. I think it's made it tough for these larger banks to maneuver and be nimble around this. Well, was the fastest passed bill in the history of the U.S. So, anything else? What sort of documentation did you have to provide? And as an independent contractor, Brian Sullivan's asking, but maybe you'd like to answer his question. There's this forgiveness if you are a company, and then there's another program if you're an independent contractor. When you are a company, you're supposed to spend 75% of the monies you receive on payroll, and the rest can go towards other things. But in the case of an independent contractor, can you speak a little bit to how that program works? A little bit different.
The application was the same. I guess I didn't look at the difference as far as the forgiveness portion of it. The application was really simple. I just gave them a copy of my 1099 and filled out the same exact application, except I checked the independent contractor box.
Okay.
So, I mean, from that end, the paperwork took me 5 minutes. For the brokerage, it took a little longer. I had to get some payroll reports together, and a 940 they wanted, and something like that. But I mean, I guess I can't answer directly about the forgiveness and the 75% on the independent contractor side.
Okay, so fair enough. Well, thank you, Justin. Thanks for answering these questions and getting your perspective on that. Really appreciate it. as far as we've been told, Brian, and this is changing all the, we've seen tweaks and changes going on with regards to this ever since the bill was passed. And next week, we hope to have on one of the legislators who helped craft the bill. Actually, two congressmen we're expecting, one from each side of the House. So they're going to really get deep into this. But for an independent contractor, the calculation is the last 12 months of your income averaged up to a maximum of 100. So if you made 100,000, you would take that divided by 12 and multiply that by 2.5, and you would come up with the amount that you could expect. And then you would be spending that on business expenses. All right. So that is what we know so far. If anybody knows anything different, please raise your hand. But that is the latest information we were provided. There's also a great video. We had one of the executives from bowfly.com who generally provides SBA loans to franchisees, et cetera. That is their specialty. And so they came on last week to our Pivot series to speak specifically to this Paycheck Protection Program and EIDL loans. And so that recording we can make available to you. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yep. We've got a couple other Q&As and some comments from the chat, as well as some hands raised. Where do you want to start?
Sure. Let's start with, who do we have with raised hands?
I got Dan Kelly was the first with a hand raised.
Dan Kelly, how are you? From Indiana.
I'm good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you,
We
Dan.
can.
Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, so this PPP has been frustrating me. I've gone through my own local bank who I've done all my local banking with. They said they weren't set up, then they were, and through it all, they've asked me for more and more documentation because they said they're going to underwrite it just like a regular commercial loan, which I said to them, why, when it's going to be forgivable? As long as I do things the correct way. So I'm, after hearing the other person say he went to another bank, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do the same thing. And let's see, I've had my paperwork in for 10 days now and haven't heard a thing. And then as far as the agents, we're with the PPP program, the independent contractors, some are looking at going back and doing that and or waiting for the states to get their unemployment for independent contractors. So
now, my understanding so far, Dan, is that you can't dip in both. That's my understanding. That could change. I said what we heard last week is the expectation is they won't be able to do both, right?
No, that part is correct. But
yeah.
Indiana has not come up with any guidelines for them.
For the banks for underwriting, correct? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then we've also done the EIDL application.
Okay.
And that's been in, we had to call them last week to see where that was, because originally they came out and said that you could have your money in 3 days, which we knew wasn't going to happen. And actually, so they said that don't expect an answer or a phone call for at least 2 weeks. And once you're approved, it'll be 3 days once you're approved before it's in your account. Now that's another program that's not forgivable, although they are talking about making that forgivable.
Right. And that I've heard people are getting those applications through beautifully, and some of them are getting sort of an immediate turnaround with $10,000 of initial release. So I'm hearing that as well.
Yeah, we're being told it's not immediate anymore. So.
No, I'm sure they've gotten, a lot of these institutions, don't know how, to your point, underwriting guidelines, or they're so big they don't know how to mobilize. But some of you are having good luck out there. I know Old National.
Yep. We actually have several examples in our chat, actually. If you don't mind, I'll read through them real quick.
Could you go through them? I know Old National has their act together.
Yep. We have Matt Evans wrote in that he filed for the PPP program with their local regional bank last week and got approved in 2 days. They're still figuring out the signing, which is a challenge in the age of COVID, but saying it's a great plan, and had a CPA go over with their agents 2 options and what to look in for them. But he definitely felt that local banks were the best. Also heard from Kathy Sullivan, who said she started at Bank of America, where they do their banking, and it didn't go well, so they ended up using a community bank, and they processed the application last week in 3 days, and they got an email last week that they would receive their money this week. We also got a note from Christine Stell, who applied over a week ago, and it wasn't being offered by her local banks, but she did receive a confirmation from a bigger bank that her application, of a confirmation of her application, and that was late last week. And so hopefully she'll be receive the funds here shortly. So people are having some luck, and it definitely depends on where they go, but there's definitely a talk track here of some success.
Yeah, and it sounds like overwhelmingly people are saying leverage your local bank. Try to stay small bank. They're much more nimble and don't have the red tape. So, and we will try. There are also some online opportunities that are available as well that you can Google through. We're going to keep a list in our COVID Resource Center, which is also full of guidelines. So if you want to figure out, the agents are trying to figure out, you want to be able to provide materials to your agents directly on what's available and how they, how you qualify, what are the calculations, etc. It's available on that, as well as I did send out an email to the entire network last week, and it had a whole section on that. So just so you're aware, as well as a video that they could watch regarding that. Christine Stell, I see that when you would ask a question, when you say they can't do both, payroll is certainly different than an agent's income. So yes, let's talk about that. So there's 2 pieces here. As a company, you look at it, you look as part of your calculations at your payroll. However, you don't include the independent contractors. They're not considered payroll unless you're actually paying them, meaning paying them as an employee. This is why they can file as independent contractors because they're not on your payroll per se, right? They're earning commissions as independent contractors. So you cannot file claiming your agents as as a W-2 expense. Does that make sense? They can't be counted twice. So hopefully that answers that question.
Hey, Fiona, Donna Pace chimed in, said she did her application, actually already got her amount paid. She's raised her hands. You want to chat with her a second about how that works?
I'd love to chat with Donna. Donna Pace is from North. Oh.
Donna, you got to mute your other phone, or we'll come back to her. Derek Buckspan as well has been had his hand raised, like to chime in.
Okay. So that's fantastic. Rachel Reed and Derek Buckspan from Portland, Maine.
Hey, thanks, Fiona and Rob. Would agree on the local bank. Local bank did a great job for us on the company. Got a question for anyone that's looking at this as an independent contractor. In addition, our company situation, like many, has been hit pretty quickly. But on the sales side, it may be that you're closing out current pipeline, but we know it's going to slow down pretty quickly. So someone raised the question, one thing you have to attest to is that your business has been impacted by COVID-19 under the penalty of perjury. So kind of my question is, okay, if somebody's first quarter is decent, so the cash flow is looking decent, but we all know, hey, that's going to be changing looking forward 2 or 3 months. Has anybody had any productive conversations about that? Hey, is it okay to go ahead and apply for it because we know it's coming versus first quarter numbers aren't that impacted yet?
Well, I think it's also your business is being impacted, which means that, we've got shelter at home orders. We're having to transact things differently, which is making things cumbersome. A lot of our customers don't want to meet with us. People are taking homes off the market. From talking to attorneys, David Jaime was actually on one of our webinars, first ones, and he said that all of those speak to having your business has been impacted by COVID.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Hey, Fiona.
I'm not a lawyer. I can just pass on.
No. I've been having a hard time getting anybody to really speak to that.
Yeah, and as I say, I'm not an attorney. This is what we've heard from attorneys.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Nice to hear from you, Derek. Nice to see your face.
You too.
All right.
I just want to let you know, I actually heard from two other people while we've been in this. Both Chris Kelly applied in 2 days and expects his monies this week, and Ellis Cohn in just down the road from Derek in Maine received his PPP funds today from his local lender, and said that having the relationship with that lender really helped facilitate getting that done.
All right, that's awesome. Donna Pace, I can see you're unmuted now. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. I can't believe that, what, was it 5 weeks ago? You and I were having dinner together in Indy, and here we are. Now we're sheltering together virtually. So what a changed world. And you know, it speaks to the fact that things will change again, right? My grandfather always said the pendulum always swings both ways. Always. So share with us, what was your process, and talk a little bit about what are you doing with your agents? How is that going?
As soon as we heard about it, we started calling the local banker that we work with that does SBA loans. And that's the key, is you got to make sure you have a banker that does the SBA loans. And he did mention to me that when the money runs out, it is gone. So if you don't have agents that have applied, or you haven't applied yet for the PPP, you need to do it ASAP, because you're at risk of not getting it at all.
Right. There is a limited amount of funds. I know that they are freeing up more funds, is what was in the news recently. So we expect there to be more, but it is not a limitless fund, without a doubt, you know.
No, and the application was easy, filling it out, and the other paperwork, you should already have it in your QuickBooks, or, you know, wherever does your accounting, to get the information to them for the last 12 months for your W-2s and your other information that they need. So, and I did send everything out to my agents and talk to quite a few of them that are looking to do it on their own as independent contractors. When I was filling out the application, my banker did mention that they were looking into, you can add your W-2 and independent contractors together for the company, but they have not approved it yet, and he was concerned they were going to run out of the money before they decided to do it. So that's why he mentioned have each agent do it on their own.
Yeah, it makes the most sense of it. I know you can't double dip. I know they were talking about it, but right now they haven't got to that place, but it is a very, very good point. Well, thank you very, very much for sharing on that.
The other one for the 10,000, I don't know how many people were applied for that, that one you were on today, Raj. Yeah, they have that. They are so backlogged on that one for the 10,000. 8 million people applied for that 10,000 that would be forgivable. So they are so backlogged on that. We just talked to the SBA today on it, and he said there was 8 million people in it. And if you haven't already applied for it, you might not get it. You're done. They said they're not taking anymore. Applications.
Well, my message is go out there, apply, try to keep it local, or try not. People are having good luck with the online banks, but certainly I would get the application in, because they are going to release more funds.
Yes, they will.
Know that, and you've got to have your application in place. I do know that some of the larger banks, and we've heard it on this call today, they've had those applications for weeks, or it seems like weeks. Certainly I've heard 10 days or more, and nobody's here. The people I've talked to, many of them haven't heard back. So I guess some people I know are applying in more than one spot, waiting to see which one hits. So I've seen that strategy successfully used as well.
One last question, and we've gotten this a lot, so I just think it'd be great if you could just answer it real quick. Is the applicant a franchise that is listed in the SBA's franchise directory?
Yes. So So they're going to look for your franchise code or franchise, it's called a franchise code when you make your application. And we have the franchise codes up in the COVID Resource Center, or you can ask your business growth consultant for your region franchise codes. New England has their own, Indiana has their own, and North Central has their own. So just so you're aware.
Excellent. All right. Do you want to move on from the CARES Act at this point?
Yeah, unless there's anybody else that wants to chime in on this at all, if it is an important topic. Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about what are you seeing that's really aha for you? I mean, we've got innovation that you're seeing in your marketplace. How are your agents transacting business differently, and how do you think that those business practices will continue? I will tell you, I saw a brilliant marketing piece on Facebook that Jimmy Doolin had put out to promote how his company is doing things and virtually, how they sell homes effectively in a completely virtual environment. And it was a wonderful piece that he shared out there. And I'm seeing more and more innovation. What sorts of things, how are you seeing your agents innovating? How are your agents getting out? And how are you motivating your agents to work virtually? David New, I know you're out there. Could you give us some insights on what you're seeing out there? And how are agents migrating to this new way of doing business?
I think he actually may have left the call, unfortunately.
Oh, that's too bad. How about Chris Arianti and Chuck Joseph?
Fiona, I'm here. Rob, I'm here. This is Chris.
Awesome, Chris.
We got you.
I'd love to hear from you about innovation. What are you seeing in the market? How are you getting your agents motivated to let their customers know they're open for business and they're doing things virtually and they're getting the transactions done?
We're trying very hard to continually support them. We're doing Zoom meetings, both large company ones as well as small group ones. And during those Zoom meetings, when we're talking with agents, it's about reaching out to their database and educating them, as Tom was saying, and with the latest and greatest that's happening, and also, inspiring them a little bit to still be working. And something Chuck and Bill and myself talked about this morning was agents may be retreating into their homes because they can't go out and about as much, but they can still be working from inside their home, giving them some skills, giving them some scripts that they can talk to their clientele about, reaching out to each one in their database to let them know what is happening, not be, bearers of misinformation, but the information that is out there, because there's a lot of misinformation that we're seeing and hearing, and letting them know that business is still happening. It's happening virtually. What's happening with that, what's happening with home inspections, and giving them the inside track so that their clientele, or those that they want to be their clientele, understand that there's still options in the market center, in the marketplace, so they can continue to do business. And the more of these conversations we're having with agents, the better the agents are responding. They feel confident, and knowledge is power. And with that power, they're in touch with their clientele, they're in touch with their database, and they're ensuring that their database has the latest and greatest information about the real estate market so that they have confidence. Because as you know, this whole thing is about consumer confidence. And if the consumer confidence wanes and isn't there, it's going to be very difficult to restart the market. That needs to be there, and we feel like we're responsible for that. We feel like our agents are responsible for that. So we've been doing a lot of those different things, and a lot of things Tom had mentioned as well, and trying just to reach out to them, support them, and to get them in touch with their sphere and getting them the right information.
And you are so right, because we have a responsibility, quite frankly, to our industry to make sure our agents are getting out news, are educating the consumer as to what is going on and what can be done. Because so many consumers, I heard about somebody who had a piece of land listed and they decided to take it off the market because of COVID. And and so, the question was posed, but is there a house there? No, there's no home there. And I guess that seller really wasn't educated that keep your property on the market, keep it exposed. You have a great opportunity to get it sold. And of course, they put it back on the market and they have an offer coming in. So I think it's really important that we're telling, giving the consumer examples. It's kind of to prove it, if you will. I heard of one agent, there was a record $11 million property sold and closed at the last week in March. And so in Massachusetts, it's law that you cannot sell a home, you cannot transfer a home unless somebody from the fire department comes around and certifies that all of the smoke detectors work. And of course, the fire department suspended doing that, which could have halted the entire sort of closing industry or the closing of homes in Massachusetts. And this agent innovated around that with her iPhone filming every one of the smoke detectors in this multifamily building. And that was enough to get the deal to go through. So, I wonder, is that something that will continue to happen after the fact, when we see the other side of this? But Chris, what other sorts of innovation are you seeing with your agents? What kind of technologies are they leaning into?
We're seeing a lot of virtual tours. My sister Beth just sold a house this weekend, set up virtual tours, as well as one person in, one person out through showing time, but did a ton of virtual touring. She actually went on there herself with her iPhone, walked around the home, required anybody who wanted to see that house or put an offer and had to watch that tour first. In addition to that, home inspectors are doing virtual home inspections, and they are going in themselves, and they're loading up their iPhone, and they're taking a buyer and the buyer's agent through the home on their phone. So it's just one person in the house, and they're communicating that way. They're also doing it by filming themselves and then calling after that. They'll send a clip out. But they're using a lot of they're using their iPhones basically as a way to be present without anybody being present. Appraisers are doing the same thing. We're seeing it with appraisals. We're now having clean closings is what they're calling them, where people are doing as much as they can online. I just refied last week and we had a clean close where we had every document in front of us except the ones that we had to do in person. And it was only about 5 pieces of paper. Person came out. They gave it to us after sterilizing their hands. We gave it back to them, but everything was done through technology prior to that. So agents are using Matterport at a very high level. They're using a couple other different 3D tours that they're uploading and then requiring people to watch. They even are going so far as saying you can make an offer on the home contingent upon seeing it in person, meaning watch the virtual tour, make the offer, and then you can come in and see it. And so again, just as a way to be socially responsible and eliminate how many people are there. So technology has allowed them to continually sell homes, or to continue to sell homes and get things done in spite of that. And in Massachusetts now, the fire department, they made it so, Governor Bacon made it so that the fire department does not have to come in. It can be, money can be escrowed, and they can do it after the closing. The buyer can take care of it. So.
Right, I think it's the buyer's responsibility now.
Correct.
So that's a shift in law, and that may, how long does that stay or remain? We're going to come out of this changed, I think.
Totally
what do you think? I want to hear, how are people taking listings now? Like, it's one thing to get, one from a past customer, but how about a new customer? Like, how are your agents conducting listing presentations? Love to hear.
Bill and Chuck are also on the line as well, if they want to chime in.
Yeah, Bill, Chuck, chime in, please. I'd love to hear from you.
Well, as far as I know, any of the new listings that we've had come on the market over the last 3 weeks had been, the appointments were all prior to that, and the sellers were waiting to put the home on the market for whatever reason. They're finishing up some remodel or something, but the agents had already met with the prospective seller and had basically everything agreed to. They just had to execute the documents via DocuSign and go forward. There hasn't been any of the sitting around the kitchen table listing presentations that I've been aware of. And we have been getting new listings, but none of them are the sitting around the kitchen table that I'm aware of. Chuck is, you may know something different, Chuck?
Yeah, there have been some agents who have still visited homes at social distances, much to my chagrin, because it is a little bit of a challenging situation to try to do that. But for the most part, we've had virtual CMAs, you know, where we share a screen, we go online, people are reviewing all the data and all the comps and everything online. They're agreeing on having their normal discussions that you would have across the kitchen table. And then once that's agreed upon, you can execute a listing contract via DocuSign. That's not an issue at all. But eventually, you have to either film the virtual tour or get in the house, and which means you have to be speaking with the photographer, the videographer, et cetera, and making sure that everybody has the comfort level that they're looking for.
Right. So do you feel that your agents are getting much more comfortable, you know, engaging in those virtual types of listing presentations? Because it's always been such a belly-to-belly in-person sport, right?
Yeah, I would just offer, Fiona, that this is a whole new world, and the comfort level is increasing rapidly in our agent population. And Bill and Chris and I had a discussion this morning and said, we're not going completely back to the way it was. There's going to be a whole bunch of changes that remain with us based on this technology and people's comfort with it.
Yeah, I would totally concur with you on that for sure. So what actions are you taking right now? Because I know, Chris, you really are out there as the face of the company with regards to recruiting and so on. You guys have been very active in mergers and acquisitions last year. What are you doing about, you know, how are you staying engaged with people that you want to, as Steve Harney would say, save? How are you engaging in those conversations? What does the outreach look like? What do the conversations look like?
Fiona, I could speak to that a little bit. So, you know, there's that social responsibility piece that Bill, Chuck, and I have talked about as to how hard do you push for business? How hard do you push for recruiting? And it's something we've batted around. And in truth, we're still trying to figure out the best way to go about it. What I can tell you is we are having conversations with people who are need to be saved might be a strong word, but making sure that they are educated in what's happening, what our company's doing, seeing what's going on in other companies and whether or not agents are being educated at a high level. Are there companies supporting them through Zoom meetings? Are they reaching out and having personal conversations? Are those things happening? And if not, why not? Because that's the stuff we're doing here. So those are the conversations we've started to have with some agents out there that we want to keep a pulse on. In addition to that, we're using social media and we're using technology to educate the masses. I was on a technology call this last week with an agent of mine. We put it out Facebook Live, getting information out there so that people can see what we are doing to try to lead from the front. In addition to that, I'll give my partner Bill and Chuck as well some big kudos for the outreach to the local hospitals. We've been delivering food with agents. Bill really spearheaded that with the charitable foundation. Did a wonderful job, amazing work, and that's all Bill and with Chuck's support. They've done a wonderful job, and that has been out there on social media. And agents have reached out to me and said, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" And that's great to re-recruit your own agents as well as putting that out there so other agents see what we're doing. So again, as you and I have talked many times, you really don't recruit anybody. It's a value proposition. We're trying to put our value out there the best we can in this time so that people see how we do it and lead from the front. And that's been my take on it. Bill and Chuck obviously weigh in as you see fit.
I think you got it, Chris.
Yeah, I think agents always want to know that you care about them, right? And that you're good at what you do and that they can trust you. But that you care about them is particularly important right now. So I think it's caring conversations is what it sounds like you're saying, and letting people know that you do care. You care about your community, et cetera. So great work on that. Anybody else want to talk a little bit about how are you keeping your agents focused on the fact that there's business going on and there's ways to transact it safely? Is that a message that's being accepted or well received, or one that is I'm talking to some brokers whose agents are angry at them for that messaging? Rob, is there anybody you'd call out on that?
Yeah, I'm looking for somebody to pick on right now. How about Tony Salerno? Didn't talk to Tony in a little while. Are you not able to unmute? All right.
Hi there, how are you?
Oh, there he is.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, Fiona, you were asking.
Fiona, you're muted.
How are you encouraging your agents to realize that, in fact, real estate transactions are taking place and that they can do them safely? We know that there's a certain camp of agents that are turtling and others that are wanting to find ways of transacting business.
Well, what we've done is we've initiated open conversation, a daily text chat with all of the agents, which is maybe maybe common to other brokers, but we share the successes by the hour, because there are agents that are continuing to do well, continuing to their business continues to keep going, and that shows the agents that are sort of probably feeling that things are not going to go well to sort of possibly keep up, you know. And so by doing that and being inclusive, and certainly having multiple Zoom meetings a week, you know, we had it set up that we were doing monthly, you know, face-to-face meetings, where now we're doing bi-weekly Zoom meetings, and I'm sure a lot of people have done the same. But we are sharing the successes. We're sharing hopefully the idea that we need to be, as everyone has been talking about, forward thinking, and that we will be coming out of this, and we need to be ready for it, for sure.
Muted.
Sorry. It's amazing with these Zoom meetings how far you know, we're so far apart we all are, but with technology, how much closer I can feel we're getting with our agents and more connected we are because of them. So congratulations on upping your number of meetings. So often, many of us would only have one once a month, and now we're doing them twice a week, and it's really needed. So thanks for sharing that. Rick Anzalone, you're on the line. Do you have a moment to share with us how you're handling business right now?
Yeah, hi Fiona, how are you?
I'm doing well. Sorry to pick on you, but nobody's putting their hands up, which means I'm just, you know, kind of forced to do it.
That's okay, that's okay.
Go ahead.
Well, you know, it's kind of like walking a line a little bit, because it's not only with your agents, but it's also with the clients, the buyers and the sellers. And someone made a good point earlier that I think it was you, Fiona, that some people react a little bit heavily to being a little cavalier about it. And I know, you know, myself personally, I've tried to be very, very careful. And I have not encouraged anyone to go out and get in front of people, sit down and do typical type of presentations. But what I have encouraged and have been doing a lot myself, because I also sell, is, you know, trying to get the message out to particularly sellers that there's a lot we can do on the front end, on the marketing end of things, and tying it in sometimes to the coming soon MLS allowance. You can really approach sellers and say, look, we can get this on the market now. I can get one person in your house, and we can set up a nice situation where we can do video marketing, where we can do FaceTime tours. There's a lot that we can do to kind of build up the presence of potential buyers, so that when we are comfortable to get people through the property, we'll have people that we've been marketing to for a few weeks. And that is an advantage for you, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, versus, trying to start at ground zero down the road.
Yeah, I can kind of imagine when we're out the other side of this, that we're going to have a deluge of listings coming on the market that were pent up. And I agree with you. Stock the shelves now. I believe that the agents that get those listings on now will, really control the market and thrive on the other side. So kudos to you. Thanks so much for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just one last thing. I think that, being on these calls for the last few weeks and hearing from, the upper echelons of RE/MAX, I think that's a pretty consistent message that we're making, and I think that's a positive thing for us as an organization.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. That's much appreciated. You take good care. I look forward to seeing you soon in person. All right, Pam Rashine from Wisconsin. Are you available to chat?
I am. Can you hear me?
I am. Yay. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you.
Both put a smile on my face. I saw you. I'm like, I got to call on my buddy Pam. Talk to us about what you're seeing in your market. How are you keeping your agents motivated? You drive such amazing culture in your company, Pam.
Well, there's a couple of things. I know a lot of agents that I've spoken to personally, as that's been my job to reach out to them, and Dan as well, although Dan does more videos. He's shooting his exercising every day and reaching out to everybody he can about training for Bouge, and still trying to do a little recruiting. And I've been calling agents individually, and a lot of them are very happy to hear that we've kept our staff on. They care a lot about our staff, and they're happy to know the support's there for the business they still have, and a lot of them are very busy yet. So just reaching out to them in person has been the best response I've had, for good feelings from folks, and that they're appreciative that we would call them.
You're still seeing bidding wars and transactions going on in Wisconsin pretty healthily?
Yeah, we still have a lot of activity. We're up for a number of transactions last year, end of March, and people were saying that they had quite a bit of activity going into April, but they're all expecting it to slow down considerably by end of April.
Okay, so we're bracing ourselves for maybe a bit of a slowdown in April. Do you believe that? What do you think our rebound will be, Pam?
It's feeling a lot like June, July craziness to me. I think our I think our crazy spring will be this fall. We'll just I think we'll be looking back and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm glad I prepared for those that did.
Have you had any aha moments out of this journey that we're going through?
I think it's mostly been agents looking out for each other and reassuring each other. The leaning in term that you use is a favorite of mine now. And I see that support when we're having some Zoom meetings, and just the reassurance people are hearing. Same as I feel from you as well. You and Sean have been great help. Thank you.
Oh, it's our pleasure. You know what? We're going through this storm, as I call it, together. And look, we are a part of the greatest network in the world because of all of you. So I mean that so sincerely. And thanks for everything all of you do out there every day. You are tremendous leaders. Couldn't be more proud to be associated with you. I'm going to be very respectful of your time, and thank you once again. But we have run over, so signing off for this week's Pivot webinar, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week. Should be exciting with two congressmen from either side of the house. So, Pam, you take good care. Take a big hug.
Thank you. Same to you.
Okay. Bye.